What? Nigga, shit so fucking hard, What? Sad to sad, I've been serving and the fag, I've been serving and the fab out the pen. Now a nigga work around the platform, and drip around the tag, never serving and the spag, try to pen. I love my nigga.
Hello, how is it going, guys? It's your boy Atypical Security Guard. I'm coming to you today, unfortunately, with yet another school shooting that has happened, this time happening in Iowa, just outside of Des Moines. I think that this offers an opportunity for us to talk about 5 uncomfortable realities right now in this time of sorrow, this time of tragedy. I think that it is so important for those of us who are in the 2A community, and also those of us who are maybe in the gun control side of the conversation, to start having a conversation about how we can find solutions to what is happening. Too many people are retreating to their corners, retreating to their ideology, and holding too close to the things that they find important and the things that give them comfort in these times. I think it's really important for us to look at the most important thing, which is what? The safety of our children. I'm a father of 4. Many of you who are watching right now, you have children, you have family members who are in these schools. If we don't start working together and having some legitimate conversations, we will continue to see situations like this arise and nothing will happen. So many of you on the gun control side of the debate are continually saying someone has to do something. The president continually says someone has to do something. The vice president continues to say someone has to do something, but you are not seeing any conversations across the aisle where the gun control community and the pro 2A community are sitting down in good faith and having these conversations about what is both leading to these situations and what are some potential changes that could help subside some of these problems that we're seeing and some of these continual issues. If you are here today watching the live stream, you are more than welcome to chime in the comment section. You are more than welcome to jump into the actual stream itself and be a part of this conversation, because short of an actual conversation where everyone is involved and coming to the table in good faith, nothing is going to change. Nothing. So let's talk about things that we do know. The details of the situation are this. The location is Perry, Iowa. I believe that's about 40 miles outside of Des Moines. I'm from the Midwest, used to live in Kansas City. I've been to Iowa many, many times. The details coming out of that: a 6th grade student was mortally injured, while 5 others, this would include students and administrators, were wounded. The suspect is 17-year-old Dylan Butler. And officers say Dylan was found dead of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Officers also said they uncovered an improvised explosive device when searching the school. Not sure what that would have been, how that would have worked in terms of how it was designed, but I'm going to assume that it was safely deactivated. So I'm going to make this very quick. We're going to get right to the point. I want to talk about 5 uncomfortable truths that we need to address if we want to see situations like this subside. Number 5 is community engagement. Again, I literally just said this. We have got to start having community involvement and communication, not politics. We have got to get away from the fucking politics of this conversation. We cannot continue to ignore reality based on ideology. And that's on both sides of this conversation. The people who are staunchly against the Second Amendment have got to loosen their grip on the conversation. Your ideology against firearms in general, your ideology against people having an inalienable right to own a firearm and protect themselves, is leading to more situations like this. I cannot tell you how many times I've had conversations with people who have said, I don't like firearms. I don't want to be around firearms. I don't want to be near a firearm. I don't think that anyone should have a firearm. Well, guess what? That's great for you. But the reality is that so many other people, specifically people who want to do harm, even more specific, people who want to do harm to children, they do not care about your ideology. So until we can have an honest conversation about the reality of the people that are in this country, the people that are in this world who wish to do harm to children, until we can have an honest conversation across the aisle with the people who are dead set on holding on to an ideology of anti-gun policies, this is going to continue to be a reoccurring theme. Your desire to lean into left-wing woke ideology against gun ownership is leading to the death of more children. And until you guys are willing to loosen your grip on the conversation and start talking about some of the positive things that we can do to intercept this situation, we are going to continue to have this conversation over and over and over again. It is absolutely unacceptable. Number 4 is we have to start addressing the root cause. It's not enough to just always say that this is about guns. It's also not enough for us on the right, those of us who are pro Second Amendment. We cannot continue to say that everything is about mental health. It's way more complex than that. And when I say that it's way more complex than that, it's way more complex because it's an issue that we are all responsible for. Those of us who were born in the late 70s, the early 80s, the Generation Xers who came up, and we had parents that were baby boomers who were too hard on us, parents that were abusive, parents that weren't consoling enough or loving enough. We have gotten to the point where we have raised a generation of kids with no accountability, with no responsibility, with no understanding of right and wrong, no understanding of the ramifications of their actions. That's on us. I'm 45 years old. The people in my demographic who have raised children who can do absolutely no wrong, that is on us. To the politicians who have pushed for policies and laws that do not hold people accountable for the smallest of crimes, what do you think the ultimate outcome of that is going to be? If you're not going to hold somebody accountable for shoplifting, if you're not going to hold somebody accountable for vandalizing, if you're not going to hold somebody accountable for petty theft, you're not going to hold someone accountable for misdemeanor assault, what the fuck do you think is going to happen? If you continue to tell people that they are not responsible for the actions that they take, they're not responsible for the crimes that they commit, then what do you think is the ultimate goal? What is the ultimate outcome? It's like cancer. You can't say, I've got a little bit of cancer in my finger, I'm just going to not worry about it because it's just a finger. No, it spreads. In this idea that there is no accountability, that there is no responsibility, that it's not your fault, it's everybody else's fault, that you're not responsible for your actions, this is the result that you get. This is on us. It's on us as a society. It's on us as leaders. It's on us as political parties. It's on us. And until we decide that, listen, it stops today. You break the law, you're held accountable. You do wrong, you pay the consequences. Until we get to that point, this idea that when someone gets upset, when someone doesn't get their way, when someone has been bullied, when someone can't get a date, that, you know what, it's everybody else's fault and I'm going to make them pay. That is the ultimate outcome of this type of ideology. It's on us. Number 3, realistic preparedness. Guys, listen, yet again, this exposes the importance of realistic measures of protection. Realistic measures of protection. I don't know how to get across to someone who has a fear of firearms, to someone that has an ideological desire to not accept the reality of firearms. I don't know what to tell you. A firearm is made to kill. It is. That is the purpose of a firearm. How it is instituted is up to the people who are utilizing it. Unfortunately, there are people out there who will use a firearm to harm people. And the only way to deal with that is to have someone who is willing to intercede with a firearm. That is reality. I don't know why people on the pro 2A side, this would be politicians, this would be the NRA, this would be people who are in the gun community that continue to have this nonsensical conversation around the Second Amendment and around the ownership of firearms. I have heard time and time and time again from the NRA talking about the AR-15 as the modern sporting rifle. Listen, 99.9% of us do not own a fucking AR-15 because it's a sporting rifle. We own the AR-15 because of the capabilities that it has in order to do what it is made to do. Now, as a law-abiding citizen, no one should fear me for having that AR-15. It's there for a specific reason, to protect myself, to protect my community, to protect my country. While I'm working as a security guard, if I have that AR-15, to protect my clients. And in this situation, it should be there to protect these children. But this idea that one side of the political conversation doesn't want there to be any firearms, they are willing to absolutely negate the reality of the fact that if there was someone there with one, they could stop this shit. It took the police officers 7 minutes to get to that school. Think about your family. Think about your children. Think about the people that you care about and you love being in that situation, and help is 7 minutes away. Why we continue to have this absolutely asinine conversation about the help that is coming to protect these kids being 7 minutes away as opposed to right there in that moment. And we should not, as American citizens, we should not, as citizens of our towns, of our states, as parents, as responsible adults, we should not allow our politicians to continue to push for the only people to come in and save these children to be minutes, if not hours away. That should be absolutely unacceptable. Everyone from your executive branch all the way down. Our mayor here in Portland has private security. Armed private security. But we want to continue to have our children sitting in a school where someone can walk into that location and then the help is 7 minutes away. And if you get down to Uvalde, once the help shows up, they're not going to do anything anyway. Absolutely unacceptable. And we need to start holding these politicians responsible for that. If I was running for office, if I had an opportunity to be a state legislator or to be a congressman in this country, I would personally put forth a bill to hold every single politician in that state and in this country personally responsible for any situation that happens like this. If they have passed legislation that you cannot have someone on site to protect those children. We have years and decades of data to show what happens in gun-free zones, to show what happens in these schools when there's no one there to protect these children. And the fact that they continue to pass legislation that makes this okay, that opens that can for someone to be able to jump in there and do that, that is on their heads. And as voters, regardless of if you're Republican or Democrat, you should not stand for it. Number two, security oversight. Listen, this recent shooting only underscores the vulnerability that schools are left in with the absence of security or police. You can go on Indeed right now and you can type in school jobs or school opportunities, and you'll see schools hiring everything from math teachers to a janitor. All of these school shootings, and not one time are they offering or hiring or looking for people who are willing to go into that school and sit there from 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and protect these children. Why? I don't want to hear about teachers complaining about their salary. I don't want to see teachers striking because they're not happy with their benefits package. I don't want to hear it. The only thing that we should be talking about right now in this country is how we are going to protect these kids. And I'm going to tell you how you don't protect these kids. You don't protect these kids by violating my Second Amendment right. If anything, you should be working with me to help you help them. We have two sets of people on both sides of this conversation. One group of people that is constantly saying, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? And you have another group of people that says, hey, we're armed and we're willing to help. Why are these two sides not getting together and having this conversation? From a political standpoint, the fact that your top levels of Democrats, your top levels of Republicans aren't sitting down and having a task force and having a conversation about how to effectively address this. Hey, if you don't want the average person, if you don't want a security guard, if you don't want a police officer, if the funding is not there, instead of letting all of these migrants come over and giving them hundreds and thousands of dollars and free places to live, what if, I'm just spitballing here. Let me see if I can get this here. I'm spitballing. What if the major people in this country, the executive branch of this country, put the National Guard in these schools? What if some of the funding that we were sending to the Ukraine or the funding that we're sending to Israel went into hardening these schools? Our focus in this country is on everything else except the protection of our children. Why is no one having this conversation? Why are these talking points that I'm spitting right here? Guys, I barely graduated high school. I am not the smartest person. I'm not the most educated person. Why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about getting two groups of people with all the money and all the power to come to the table and figure this out? The conversation ain't that difficult. We can figure out how to protect our government leaders. We can figure out how to get weapons, how to get security systems all the way across the world to another country. We can figure out ways to get people that aren't even American citizens from point A to point B. On the Republican side, they can figure out how to fly people from Texas all the way to New York. But we can't figure out how to put 2 or 3 security guards or armed police officers in every single schools. I don't care if you got to cut the damn football program. Cut a football coach, cut one of the trainers, cut one of the volleyball coaches, and hire some security in every single school. And this should be the thing that every single red-blooded American is asking for. No. Scratch that. Every single American should be demanding this. Demanding it. These are our children. Last but not least, gun-free zone vulnerability. The uncomfortable truth is that gun-free zones create environments where perpetrators feel less resistance, and that only emphasizes the need for a more nuanced approach. Now, when I say nuanced, I don't really mean nuanced. It's very, very, very simple. Put someone in the schools with a firearm to protect the children from someone with a moderate level of education, with no money to speak of. I am begging you, on the Republican side and on the Democrat side, from the state level to the national level, from sea to shining sea, put someone in the schools. It's not that difficult. And for everyone out there watching this video, if you are one of those people that says someone has to do something, but you continue to vote for policies that make these schools soft targets, shame on you. Shame on you. If you continue to support groups like Moms Demand Action, who push for schools to remain being soft targets, shame on you. It is time to drop the politics. It's time to look at these things through a rational view and do what we do for every single aspect of our other institutions, our banks, our government facilities, our power plants. I work for a grocery store as an armed security guard. If we are going to protect everything from our executive branch of government all the way down to our grocery stores with armed security, it is absolutely unacceptable that our greatest resource, which is our children, our future, for them to not be protected makes zero sense. And no one, regardless of how you vote, should accept that. I'm going to open this up for some comments. This absolutely infuriates me. It infuriates me because it's not that simple. It's not that difficult of a concept. Was there an armed guard or school police officer in school? Having armed security in schools would stop a lot of these shootings. I have not heard of any guards being on the premises. There's nothing in the news that I've seen that there was somebody there. It said that the responding officers, it took them 7 minutes. Okay. I do know that this is a gun-free zone. All right. When they say that, they mean banning. How about we start to address why so many of our youth are mentally ill? I think it's due to how quick our doctors prescribe medication that causes suicide and homicidal thoughts. But God forbid we address that. Big Pharma wouldn't dare let their meds be the cause. Guys, look, that's another issue. Instead of just disciplining, that's the thing. Parents don't want to discipline their kids. They don't want to be the bad guy. So when Billy is 2 years old, instead of dealing with the fact that he's crying and he wants attention, we throw a damn iPad in front of him and just let him be raised by the television. When he grows up, he's seeing all these people living certain lives, having certain types of outcomes, and that stuff starts to mess with you. But instead of just parenting these kids, we're just putting them on meds. Don't even get me started with what we're doing in terms of allowing children to take medications for a lot of things that aren't medical, some things that are cosmetic, and then wondering why these kids are freaking out. I totally agree with you. They take and take and take, but never again. Ban firearms, yet they still have criminals then, and now they're banning knives. Exactly. The United Kingdom is a perfect example of give an inch and take a mile. They start banning all the firearms. They got rid of the rifles. They came after the handguns next. They came after knives. And now they're going after what they call zombie knives, saying that if a knife has a specific, serrated edge, or if it has writing on it, that somehow that makes it more different. Exactly. It's the same situation. It's all about banning. Because if you can ban an inanimate object, if I say, look, I'm getting fat. And the reason why I'm getting fat, it's not because I need to make some changes. It's because there's too much sugar in this coffee. So we're just going to ban sugar. No, the problem is I have to address why I am drinking so much coffee with sugar in it, or I'm eating the way that I'm eating, right? But that takes a little bit more effort. That takes a little bit more discipline, right? And people don't want to do that. They don't want to have the effort. They don't want to be disciplined. They don't want to talk about why the kids are acting like this, why the kids are freaking out, why the kids are responding to bullying the way they are, why the other kids are bullying. They don't want to talk about any of that, because that's going to force each and every person to look in the mirror and say, maybe I'm a bad parent. Maybe I didn't do the best job with little Billy. Maybe I should have stayed home instead of going out to the nightclub and hanging out with my friends. So it's just much easier to say, let's just go ahead and ban this inanimate object. That doesn't change things. Ray says, how many times has a shooter originally planned on one school and then they saw a guard and then they went to another one that didn't have a guard? They want no resistance. Unfortunately, man, like we don't know, that's the one thing about security is that we can't qualify how many things we stop just by our presence. Working at a grocery store, how many armed robberies have I stopped by just being there on scene? I don't know, because the robbery didn't happen. We always talk about the things that happen when the guard is there, the things that the guard doesn't do, the actions the guard takes that makes, national headlines. But every single day, I have to assume where I work, we have about 3,000 to 4,000 people come through that location. I'm going to assume that of those 3,000 to 4,000 people, there's a lot of things that I've deterred just by standing there, which is my job. That should be the idea around having security in school. Put up a strong enough front so the kids don't feel like that's the place to pull that shit. I just wanted to say hi to everyone. All right, got to go back to work. Stay safe. Yeah, man, definitely. Have a good shift. All right. Rules for thee, not for me. Yep. Some of these schools are just not taking shooting seriously, and that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate. Just says it's all about the money. The government are not willing to put money into security. Now, if the government is not willing to put money into securing American schools, that tells you every single thing you need to know about the government. And on both sides of the equation, both sides of the aisle, that should not be acceptable. This is something that every single American should be able to unite on. These are the questions that we should be asking our politicians. Start with your local politicians. Reach out to your mayor and say, hey, what are you doing to protect these children? What are you doing to protect the schools? And listen, I get it. 2020, everything happens with George Floyd, and people say, look, get the police officers out of school. There's systemic issues around law enforcement and minorities. Guys, you don't have to tell me. I know all about it. My parents grew up in Jim Crow, Arkansas in the 50s. You cannot tell me about the systemic issues and history of Black Americans in this country. I know it better than anyone. I can go toe to toe with anybody on the history of this country. The problem is that has no bearing on what's going on right now with these school shooters. So taking cops out of the schools, you're potentially solving one issue by opening up a major another issue that all of us, regardless of race, are now suffering from. This is not something that is that difficult. Put the cops in the schools. Every single municipality should have at least one police officer in every single one of their schools. And this is not something that's difficult to do. All right. Monique says, you make too much sense. Yeah. And the problem that you mentioned earlier is that if we lived in the 1800s, Mr. Trump would have been. All right. Well, yeah. All right. I don't want to go down that road. That is a different podcast. But guys, look, I'm starting to ramble. We're getting off into rant territory, but these are the 5 things that have to be addressed. I want you guys to talk about this with the people that are close to you. If you have people in your circle, people in your peripheral, people in your family that are anti-gun, that are pro-gun control, start to call them on the carpet on this. We have got to stop having this idea that I'm just going to talk to the people that are in my echo chamber, the people that are over here, like they don't agree with me, they don't believe the way that I believe, so I'm not going to have these conversations. No. Start having these conversations and start talking to them directly about these issues. All right. My dog's barking. I think got somebody in the parking lot, or the driveway rather. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. All right. That's my take, guys. Let me know what you think in the comments. Be great.